Hey everyone, it's the Hey Poopy podcast.
What that booty do from poop to pleasure to health.
Hosted by me, Dave.
And me, Ellen.
Two curious people removing the stigma from your stinker.
And why are we doing this? Because we love laughing and learning about butts and helping them to be the best that they can be.
Yes. And on today's episode, we have John from the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District. And it was so much fun.
Yes. We found out about him from Chelsea Wald's fantastic book, Pipe Dreams, and he runs this incredible Twitter that's very, very funny. And he even made a tweet once saying how only on the Twitterverse could a sewer treatment plant become a star.
Yes. I mean, this is one thing that technology is great at. The fact that we can go on there and find out from a sewer treatment plant just tons of jokes and awesome puns. And they're actually doing amazing things over there, too. So, you laugh, you learn, which we're all about. And John was that exact amazing person that we had, that guest that we just love to have on our show.
And here's a little clip from this episode.
On the next Hey Poopy.
From a couple years back, one of our sewer maintenance crews actually rescued live alligator from a creek in Cleveland, right outside of one of our pump stations.
Wait, back up. Are alligators even indigenous there?
No.
What?
They are not. They are
so someone
not. So we don't know exactly, but the chances are that it was a local owner, a local dealer who was trying to avoid having to pay fines for having a creature like that. So the fact that it was seen in the distance by one of our sewer maintenance crews while they were doing preventative maintenance on another system, they realized this could be something here. So they actually went down, rescued it.
How big was it?
It was almost, I think it was just about 2 feet long in terms of what the size was at the time.
Wow.
Large enough to hold in your hands. And they scooped it up in a clean garbage can. They kept it warm with some warm water and brought it back to our lab facility until we can get someone from the local Metro Park Zoo to come by and check out and help us.
You'll be hearing more of that if you tune into the rest of the episode, which we always know you will. And you can find out all about John and the Ohio Regional Sewer District system.
And do you have some glowing compliments that you want to rain upon this Poopy podcast? Well, we love them. We love them so much that we read them on the show. Like the fantastic comment/review that was left on YouTube by Ted McAdams. Really good episode. Great podcast. Eye-opening in more ways than one. Ha ha. He was saying this about the Anthony Sneed episode from a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
So
nice.
Thank you so much, Ted McAdams.
Yeah.
We really appreciate all comments and reviews. And if you want to leave one, please do so on Apple Podcasts or on YouTube.
Yes, be like Ted. Leave a review. We really appreciate it. So if you want to be like Ted, leave a message, a review, a comment. You can visit us at heypoopypodcast.com. You'll find out all the info you need to get that review to us, and we'll read it on the air.
On to the shit show.
Hey Poopy, how you doing? Hey Poopy, how you doing?
I'm just, trying to find a place with like-minded people to talk about like-minded things about me, about poop and stuff.
Hey Poopy, how you doing? Hey Poopy, how you doing?
Oh man, what's this right here? Is this a podcast about poop?
Hi everyone, welcome back on this dump day. This is going to be such a great episode, but first,
This is the Hey Poopy podcast with
Dave
and Ellen, and this is episode 135, but it'll always be number 2 to us, our favorite number.
Yes.
And as Dave just said, this episode is going to be monumental, people, because we have somebody that Chelsea Wald from the brilliant book Pipe Dreams turned us on to, John Gonzalez from the Ohio Sewer District.
Yes.
Who-
Welcome.
If you guys aren't following him on Twitter, or them, the entire sewer district, you guys are missing out.
Yeah, it's brilliant. First, thank you so much for being on the show and taking the time out to do this.
I appreciate the invitation. Thanks again.
Yeah, of course.
And you're somebody who's like us. We're trying to take the stigma out of your stinker and laugh at all the funny things that we have to do with pooing.
Plenty to talk about, plenty to laugh at, but a lot to learn from as well.
100%.
Yeah,
That's why we have you on.
Very excited for this.
Yes.
But we'd like to start off our interviews by asking our guests how they've been pooping. How have you been pooping, John?
Regular guy, So feeling good, and not much else to say about that. I'm in good shape. So
Excellent.
I appreciate you starting there.
Yeah.
Your poop ends up in the sewers that you work for. So, I mean, it's very kismet.
You're like VIP.
Very true. It's all a cycle. It's all an urban water cycle, and so we're glad to have a part in that myself, I suppose.
Excellent.
He's a VIP poopy.
Yeah, VIPP, VI pooper. So thank you for that. Alan, how has your poops been today?
I pooped earlier today. It was maybe a kind of Bristol 5.5, 6. Not so great, but better out than in. And then I have a very small epic check-in, and it's just that my dog then pooped on the floor, diarrhea, which I had to clean up right before I came here. That was not fun.
Yeah, that's not fun at all.
She's a very large dog. She makes very large poops.
Oof,
No bueno.
that sucks. Well, at least you didn't take a dump on the floor.
Nope. Thankfully, I didn't.
Mine have been right before the show, like maybe like half an hour.
Ooh.
Nice 4.5-ish, I'd say,
Oh, better than mine.
on the Bristol stool chart. But yeah, it's my first one of the day. Shockingly, I thought I'd have more of this, but
Wow.
there's a lot of day left. But now that we got that out of the way,
Yes.
John, please tell our audience, just a little background before we dig into everything
Yeah.
that the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District does. But we'd like to know, what you do.
Yeah. What do you do besides your poo?
Sure. Well, besides you mentioned our Twitter account, so my role here at the Regional Sewer District in Cleveland, Ohio, is I serve as our communications manager. So that's a combination of working with our internal team to talk with employees about things that are happening here in the organization. And then I also work and manage our social media accounts and work with our external community relations team to make sure we have the right information out for our customers, messages for them about things they can do, things that we are working on. And so it's really an internal and external communication combination on a day-to-day basis.
Nice. Well, like Ellen mentioned at the top of the show, you have your Twitter feed is awesome. It's so funny.
Do you do all the tweets yourself?
Yeah, so the tweets are primarily myself. I do have a colleague who has access just in case for events or emergencies. But for the most part, the day-to-day interaction they're having on Twitter is with myself.
That's awesome.
And so when you told them, hey, you guys, I'm going to be a little bit funny about this, and then all of a sudden it kind of blew up where people are talking about like what was that plan?
It was impetus. It was a slow roll into it, or did you just kind of come out guns blazing?
As you know, with most movements, some are slower than others. So this one took a little bit of time to get to where we are today. It was a gradual build because our responsibility, as you know, is a sewer district, but that manages both wastewater and stormwater. It's a combined effort.
Okay.
So I've been here for a long time, but when we first started this particular effort, it was right around the mid-2000s, and we started to say we have a great opportunity to reach customers and an obligation to reach customers wherever they are. And so we started to experiment with social media and used it for normal means of press releases, information about projects that were going on. But as the platforms have expanded, people's expectations on those platforms have also changed. And so when it comes to how we talk with customers on those platforms, we try to meet customers where they are. And so they come to Twitter for timely updates and they expect responsiveness. Humor is a great way to catch people and to make them stop with what you have to say. And as a public utility and wastewater and poop as a business of ours is one aspect of our work, we use what people talk about in the way they talk about it as a means of making a connection with our work and the lives that they're living. People are often far too busy during the day to think about infrastructure, think about sewers, think about anything beyond what's in front of their phone or in their immediate circle. So this is a way for us to connect with them and show them that our work is impacting their lives, whether they realize it or not, on a daily basis.
Oh, it 100% impacts.
And it's amazing that humor is usually the best way. And also, it's a hard thing to just be funny, especially with a wide net, which you're casting out to those people too, like customers and people that obviously using the services.
You're right, but you're speaking to the point that we want to recognize that we can't be straight-laced all the time, and we have a very formal organization. We're a government entity, we're a utility. We have an obligation to serve customers and to ensure that what we're sharing is clear and consistent. But what social media offers us is a chance to be tongue-in-cheek, a chance to be funny, and for us to respond to customers with a transparency that they might not be familiar with other utilities. When it comes to drinking water and the types of services that are associated with drinking water, there are some expectations there, but wastewater people don't often think about. And so if we do want them to stop and think about us at all, humor is a great way to open that door. And you'd be surprised at the types of dialogue that then comes out of the fact that they stop to engage with us. And there's some really good information that we are hearing from them, and also they're learning from us on a variety of topics because they stopped to listen to what we were having to say or talk about.
Yeah, because humor humanizes you. You're not just this government entity that people poop in and flush stuff down and try to not think about, but it makes it realize that, oh, there's somebody behind that. And so...
It's also, I think, too, it's like, you know, when you can kind of like laugh at something, I feel like people get behind it and they kind of take ownership of it. Like, you know, they're sort of like part of a community, which I really like as well, which I think is one of the better parts of of your Twitter feed. Just like you feel like you're part of something, you know, even though it's like it does seem so far reaching, but.
I like the way you talk about it. It does feel as though we have a bit of a following on our Twitter account. We have other social media accounts, but the greatest engagement is there. And I think our timeliness and our willingness to engage on topics that other people might feel are taboo, or the way that we talk about them might be not what people are used to. There is a sense of connectedness there that we don't have in other platforms. It's a way of bringing ourselves into a conversation that otherwise might not be happening, or otherwise people might not think we have a place to connect with them. But the reality is, as a utility, we're in people's bathrooms.
Yes.
We connect with some of the most intimate.
It's pretty intimate.
In someone's day. And besides that, we're managing streams out in the environment. So there's really a connection to what's happening in the homes, in the neighborhoods, and across the region, because of the work we do and the connection we can make with people here on Twitter, for example.
Yeah, 2 tweets of yours recently that I loved was one about just even the fact that you were like, I cannot believe we became famous on Twitter. And just the fact that social media got an author who lives in the Netherlands to tell us in New York and be an understanding of the Ohio sewer district. It's like that's huge. Like that, the internet that's the one good thing about connecting everybody together. But also your other one where you photoshopped the guy, that famous meme of the guy with the girlfriend, but he's looking over his shoulder at another girl, and how everybody's used that. But you photoshopped it in as like toilet paper versus baby wipes. And you're like, don't do it. And we're constantly trying to educate people on this show about fatbergs and how baby wipes are bad on not just on a sewer level, on so many levels. And so if you want to talk more about educating our audience to baby wipes are bad.
Yeah, flushing wipes and flushing disposable wipes or sanitizing wipes, they're really a detriment to the sewer system. It's not, many people will use them out of a sense of convenience or comfort, which I can certainly relate to, but as it relates to the system that you are putting that waste into, they're not designed to break down the way the toilet paper is. People might think that toilet paper is not the most comfortable, or people think that they want something that simply feels better, it's more conveniently packaged. But the reality is that toilet paper is designed to break down. Wipes are a lot more fabric oriented, and they are much, much more difficult on both home plumbing and our treatment plants. I've talked to operators who say that they see remnants of wipes across the facility. They see them in various processes, and they gum up some of our screens that help to trap some of the waste before it flows into our treatment plants. They're just not good for the system, and they have to be disposed of and maintained properly. So our preference is that people don't flush them. If you want to make some other choices at home, you can certainly do that. But as it relates to wipes themselves, they just don't break down. We want people to recognize and at least be aware. Just because something might say flushable, you can flush your keys down the toilet, but we don't recommend it. Because
you can put a lot of stuff in the toilet.
Fit down your drain doesn't mean it's good for the system that it's entering. So just to keep that in mind when people are making those purchases or making those choices at home.
Well, we try to educate people on the show by telling them that wipes are actually more like a cotton T-shirt. So you don't flush your T-shirt because that will clog up the system, and a wipe is basically made out of cotton the same way. And then we educate them, buy one of those Snap-on bidets, or buy Cleanse, who's one of our advertisers, which makes a foam onto your toilet paper into a wipe. Like, there's other alternatives, but if you are diehard about the wipes, throw them in your trash can. Do not flush them. And also, a lot of those wipes have chemicals on it that ruin the natural pH balance of your butthole, and you'll get more fissures and hemorrhoids from it. So it's also really, really bad for you, even if you just throw them in the trash can. So.
Yeah, bidets get a lot of conversation on our Twitter feed. It's amazing. When we talk about the difference between wipes and TP, you've got people jumping into the thread very quickly to say the bidets are a way that they have changed their behaviors and actually changed what they're putting into the system. And
Oh,
so
completely.
it shows that our conversations are having impact, because they're saying, since I started following you, I don't do this anymore.
That's
and they're small
amazing.
little anecdotes, but they make a difference.
Completely.
And to your earlier comparison, one of my colleagues, Jen, says that, you put a Kleenex in your pocket and run it through the wash, it doesn't break down. It just balls up and gets into a wad that is
Oh, yeah.
more detrimental than the initial thing you were trying to get rid of. Wipes are the same way. It's like it has a fabric component to it, and it just does not disintegrate.
Well, yeah, you put a T-shirt in the wash and you get your T-shirt back.
Do you guys have a big problem with fatbergs there in Cleveland?
In our region,
Or
we are a
area?
regional agency, and so what that means is that we're collecting flow from local communities, and then we treat that flow on their behalf. And so many of the problems that happen with fatbergs are more on the local level. As with wipes, it's more in the home and in the local level before it gets to our larger system. So fatbergs are not largely an issue here. We do have certain industrial users who we have to manage and work with to ensure that they're not contributing great quantities of waste like that into
Gotcha.
the system. But it doesn't have the same impact here that it may have overseas, for example. The UK has a big problem with wipes and fatbergs. But here in our local communities, we manage 60 plus communities worth of waste. There may be more of an issue there, but not for us regionally.
How many households are in those 60 plus communities?
We have over 300,000 accounts.
Wow.
And that covers more than 1 million residents in that area
Wow.
that we serve.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Wow. That's impressive, though. And to your point about overseas, yeah, there's you can go, they have a fatberg at a museum on display, which I'm sure you've seen, but that thing is of nightmares.
It just speaks to what people respond to, and it makes problems real. And we love to share content on our Twitter feed that is from our crews who work out in the field, or the unseen people who are working underground, or the people in our treatment plants who come face to face with this stuff every day. If we can use our social media to connect people with those realities and those faces who see that waste coming into their plants, it just makes it real. The same way our humor humanizes us, those images and testimonies from people who are out there doing the work on our team, it just makes the issue something that people can relate to and may open some eyes in a way that other content might not.
Agreed, for sure, because baby wipes, I feel like to unlearn that, for years, I used to, years ago, I used to use them just, I'm like, oh, this is so much better.
Because we didn't know better.
And then now you're like, well, this shit is it's horrible. It's just so bad.
Convenience and comfort really do drive so many personal decisions. But the reality is, the more people know, or if you hear people, you can search Twitter or any number of places for people to give you a horror story of what they thought they were flushing was not a problem until, oh, by the way, they had to pay a plumber to come out and fix the problem.
Yep.
Those stories are easy to find as well. So once they experience it or see things from a different perspective, it does have the impact of changing behaviors that we've seen.
I've always said that I wish we had a bigger budget and we could do a feature-length film on a fatberg being like a horror movie, and then it would really educate everybody.
Believe me, there's a UK series on sewer workers that is basically it's a reality series following them on their.
Check that out.
I'm sharing the story, but I can't think of the name of the episodes. But what
We'll find
they do is they follow their crews out for a day in the life of the variety of issues that they come up against, and it's really well done. I would love to do a series like that for our own workers, just to give them a spotlight that they deserve, to make sure they understand what's going on.
I've seen just stills or photographs of workers down in the UK holding these boulder things, or just trying to unwedge this crater that's just mucking up
away at them.
It's insane. It's not only just your weight. You're wiping your butt with it. It's just collecting all that grease and all the other crap that goes through those systems too, into a giant. Well,
if you've cleaned any drain out of your sink, out of your bathtub at home, you see how quickly things can accumulate.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
If you think about that on the level of a sewer that's 6, 8, 10 feet wide, all the number of homes that are connecting to it, it's the same thing happens on a much larger level that needs to be addressed either by the community or by a regional agency like ours if it gets that far in the system.
Well, people should take a cue around the country with what you're doing, because it's great. And like you said, it's educational, but it's also fun, and you're not you don't feel you're grossed out by it. You're this is actually affecting me in a way that I didn't know, which I love that part.
It's certainly fun. I appreciate our leadership here allowing us to have that flexibility and that freedom, because a lot of utilities may feel as though they can't push that envelope. But we've been able to show some success, and what's more important is that we build up, like you said, that sense of community and trust with the people that we interact with. When they send us an off-the-wall question, you can pretty much guarantee we're going to respond to it in some capacity and be able to show you that we're interested in what you have to talk about. We can relate to the news that you want to ask us about. And we've got information that's worth it to you as a customer or anyone who's following us, because if behaviors are changing even outside of our service area, you're still having an environmental benefit that is valuable to us.
Well, a lot of people just see the toilet as a garbage can, like just put it in and forget about it. And we do the same with our garbage. But then all of a sudden, like in the 80s and 90s, we started like going, oh, we should recycle stuff, you know, like, and the same is with toilets. We need to educate people on like where all this stuff goes. And I just learned stuff about like even from Chelsea Wald's book that like when we wash a pan that had oil in it, even just washing it in the sink, you should rub it down with a paper towel to get that grease off and throw that in the garbage, versus because everybody's pans just add up, and that adds to the fatberg. Isn't just baby wipes.
That's what I was saying, yeah.
Everything.
It just collects all that stuff and just soaks it up and turns it into
a personal responsibility when it comes to managing infrastructure. You mentioned cleaning up after your dog at the front end of this episode. We encourage and have a campaign to promote people cleaning up after their dogs when they're out in the public. You know, dog waste is a huge problem from a water quality perspective, and so we encourage people to pick up after their pets for that reason. Those type of simple things that you kind of take for granted.
Wait, back up. Can you explain to us what, like, is it people walking their dogs on the street, or even just like the wash off from their own yards? Like, tell us more about dog waste.
Sure. So it's a combination of factors. And so we recognize that public education is about changing behaviors and encouraging people to change their behaviors. We've had a campaign that we call Pick Up Poop. It's our pup campaign. And it encourages dog owners just to simply be courteous and not leave the mess behind. But polluted runoff from dog waste actually has more bacteria than human waste does.
Wow.
And so when that waste runoff makes its way to street sewers, for example, in a separate sewer community where sanitary waste and stormwater waste are in separate pipes, that stormwater waste that carries the runoff from a yard goes right to the environment. In a combined sewer community where both waste and stormwater are in the same pipe, it will get treated. But in most of our suburbs in this region, they're separate. And so therefore that stormwater runoff will go right to the environment. And that's just carrying that bacteria with it. We want to try to encourage people to just at least make that courteous step of cleaning up after their pet, taking it with them and throwing it away, or even flushing it at home, which is completely acceptable, but not leaving that behind because of the bacteria that's found there.
I want to tell my neighbor that. He never cleans it. It's so disgusting. Like,
this is in New York where you get fined.
Multiple resources to leave with their neighbors. It's unfortunate, but we do try to support them and make sure people know what the impacts are.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Oof. Going back, we were talking about like you get a bunch of questions throughout, for different followers. Like on a crazy day, like are you getting inundated with questions from that community, or is it more just like a few times a day, or does this kind of vary?
It really varies on the topic. When there's a relevant, we're always following trends. We always try to find out what people are talking about. If we can relate to a cultural meme or something going on in the Cleveland sports area, which is huge here, we'll jump into a conversation. And you never know when one tweet might spur a dialogue. There was one night about 10 o'clock, I posted a tweet basically saying, you post tell me what you have a question about and I'll tell you if you can flush it or not. So basically, ask me anything. Is it flushable? And we had hundreds of responses and interactions with people just giving me off the wall stuff. Can I flush the spaghetti I didn't eat last night? Can I flush my neighbor's Nickelback CD collection? All sorts of stuff come up in those dialogues that give you a chance to say yes or no. But people are asking some very legitimate questions. I thought you could flush paper towels. Well, no, you shouldn't flush paper towels. I thought you could flush Kleenex. Well, no, you shouldn't flush Kleenex or any facial tissues. So those types of engagements, if you post it at the right time, and we are able to get back to people quickly, that engagement amplifies the conversation. So we love to have those dialogues that may kind of come unexpectedly. And if we can devote the time to it over the course of a day to engage, we'll certainly do that.
Okay, spaghetti though. Is spaghetti flushable?
I don't know. We would say if you're going to maybe eat it first.
Yeah. Don't just make it and flush it.
Don't wait. Don't put food down the toilet if you don't have to. Compost it. Find a better use for it.
Yeah.
But as it relates to things that we always advocate, we say two things are basically acceptable down your toilet drain. That's human waste or it's toilet paper. Anything outside of that, you're potentially compromising the system somewhere, either in your house or in the sewer system itself. So pee, paper, poop, puke, all those things are okay to go down the toilet. But anything else besides that, you're only asking for issues somewhere down the line.
Also, Can You Flush It is a great segment for something. Like, that should be a TV show.
We've had recommendations to try that on our TikTok, to do a Can You Flush It? And I just think that we see plenty of bad TikToks of people putting things in the toilet that don't belong there.
Yeah.
So don't want to encourage people giving us challenges that don't deserve to be.
Gotcha. No, I get that. You don't want to open up Pandora's box.
I could see a video though where like somebody's going to flush the spaghetti and just slap it out of their hands and go, no.
I'm all for impact. So if that will help get people to change their behavior and not flush their day old spaghetti, I guess.
Oh, that is crazy. Spaghetti flushers.
Oh. Well, I've heard of people like old soup, I'll just flush it down the toilet. And I'm like, is that okay? Where do you put old soup? So
I don't think I've ever put food down a toilet. I don't know.
Yes,
yeah.
People do put a lot of people use their garbage disposal as a place to dispose of old food. And to a certain degree, that's fine. But you don't realize the same way that the solids will build up if you flush them down your toilet, adding more solids to a water pipe, even if they're ground up, it's still going to build up over time, and it needs to go somewhere.
Yeah.
So
especially if that solid has oil in it.
Exactly. If there's anything of a greasy nature to it or an oily substance that's going down your drain, it will not break down. It just simply moves. And so if it gets caught anywhere in your system or somewhere in ours, someone has to take care of it. It's not going to flow freely. And so it's our job regionally to keep people in the right place at the right time to prevent those issues. And do what we can to keep the system moving as it should.
Agreed.
They also say that even if it's poop, pee, vomit, a lot of that stuff we have like undigestible from our prescription drugs in there. And even if we have like a high greasy diet, if you're eating a lot of greasy food, you're still pooping out a lot of grease, and that's not good. So, I mean, do you guys see anything with that? With like, I've heard that they can test the sewers to see what kind of prescription drugs or even opioids or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we have a voice at the state level and also at the national level, because our lab does have the ability to test and see what's in the wastewater. And we do have evidence that prescription drugs are things that are in the wastewater stream that our treatment plants are not designed to handle. That's this issue across the country. So prescription drugs, whether people are flushing them to dispose of them, that was a big problem years ago, and people are trying to get educated more about the fact they should not be disposed of that way. Or, like you said, that they've gone through our own human system and they're still being discharged in our waste. The ability for our equipment to track and trace such small amounts of those chemicals make it evident that the stuff is still in the system, and we have to find ways to manage that. Right now, treatment plants do not have the technology to remove all of those things, and so we're trying to understand where the trends are headed and how we as an agency can be better prepared over time to address challenges like that, because it's not just a Cleveland issue. That's certainly an issue around.
Oh yeah, I mean,
it's a
in
worldwide
Chelsea's
issue.
book, she was talking about that, and I forgot, was South Carolina. I can't remember the state. I was going to say West Virginia for some reason, but I don't know if it's West Virginia. But yeah, they had that same issue with opioids, and like these pockets of places where it was just like a lot in the water that they just found all this like runoff.
Yeah, and we're part of a program here in the state of Ohio that was helping to contribute wastewater samples for the state to better understand what the coronavirus, the COVID-19 epidemic was looking like, because there was evidence that your human waste could be a preview of what's coming soon as it relates to spikes in cases and such. So we were able to contribute data that was helping to allow the state to better understand what those trends look like. So it's amazing what can be revealed in a sewer system, and there's all sorts of stories about what that can be and what it can do. So we're pleased to support that effort to understand what that looks like.
It's like you have a crystal ball. Like you could tell the future where the spike of a virus is breaking.
in certain places at the very local level, you have that capacity. Now again, we at the regional level, we're simply monitoring our treatment plants to know which region of our service area was seeing some trends. So we weren't at the local level knowing if one particular community may have an issue. But it was the fact that we were even able to collect that and contribute to that analysis. It was something I was certainly impressed by to learn about it as it was going on. And if it was helping the state to better understand what challenges we had as a region, then that was certainly worth it.
Yeah, the technology that's amazing. That it's that finite too. Like I always think too, like all the things that go into the sewer and like just we flush and just get rid of. Like I think it's gonna like there's gonna be some kind of weird underground dwelling being that's just gonna pop out through the like a horror movie. Chud. Yeah, that was oh my god, that was like one of the first movies I rented as a kid. This movie called Chud. It was terrible.
Cannibalism, humanoid, underground dwellers.
Cannibalistic, humanoid underground. I could see the cover right now. It was so crazy, and I'm just hoping there's no chuds that are going to come up.
Oh, they are, and they're coming out of the fatbergs.
Not if we can help it.
Yeah,
if we can keep the system clear, we'll do what we can. Between chud references and Ninja Turtle references on our Twitter.
Oh, the Ninja, yeah.
That and Pennywise. So those three memes are all over our Twitter feed. They get old quick. We'll make turtle references as often as we can. I'm a kid from the 80s. So
yeah, that's great. Oh, that's hilarious.
You were saying since you run, how many treatment centers are there that you guys have under your umbrella?
Yeah, so we serve 62 communities. We serve the city of Cleveland and then 61 suburbs around it. So we have 3 wastewater treatment plants that each take a section of that service area. Combined over the course of a year, we treat 90 billion gallons of water.
Wow.
So that's a combination of not just human waste, toilet waste, it's also stormwater, and the vast majority of that is stormwater in the region. But yeah, 90 billion gallons a year.
Wow.
It's a lot. It's a big impact on the quality of Lake
So it's 3 treatment plants.
Correct. 3 treatment plants. We also manage an environmental and a maintenance service center, which is where all of our fleet services work out of. All of our lab work is done there. And so those 4 primary facilities and our administrative building is where we get our work done here across the region.
Wow, that's amazing. Does the whole state share like a lab facility to get stuff tested, or is it each sort of region have their own?
It depends
testing?
on the region, depends on the utility. We have a lab that is certified to conduct drinking water analysis, and so our lab will actually do testing on behalf of other communities. We contract with them because of the abilities of our lab to meet their needs. It's a shared resource that we can actually help other communities get what they need by the services we can provide.
Oh, amazing.
And we had somebody here from New York for the Gowanus and Newtown Creek cleanup, and they were telling us that 1 inch of rainwater will just flood the sewers here in New York. What about in Ohio?
I wish I had an easy answer to that. I was actually just talking with someone over the weekend who is on our maintenance team, and there's a lot of variables there. So I can't boil it down to something of that simplicity. I suppose with an expert on the line, he might be able to do that.
Right.
But the reality is that in a combined sewer area like Cleveland, even the most minimal rainfall has a significant impact on the flows going to our treatment plant. And the way a combined sewer system works, if you've talked to people with the Gowanus Canal, those overflows are designed to prevent backups in people's homes and prevent treatment plants from being overwhelmed by even the smallest of rains. And so what we have found is that we have to make improvements in the system to be able to capture and treat and harness as much of that water as possible to prevent pollution from overflowing into the environment. So that's what a number of projects we're working on right now have that intent, increasing our treatment plant capacity, minimizing the amount of flow in the system wherever possible, but doing our best to capture more of it and eliminate the overflows that pollute Lake Erie specifically.
Yeah. Yeah. Recently we had like a crazy here in New York. We had a storm not too long ago that was, it was all over social media, but especially mainly uptown, the Bronx, just like some of the highways look like a river.
And it flooded the subways.
The subways were
I saw the same stuff.
Yeah.
Not long before that, New York City's Twitter feed was bashing Cleveland out of. So we jumped into the conversation there unexpectedly, and out of that came the fact that I was getting tagged in multiple tweets that were showcasing how bad the storm situation was and how infrastructure was just really inundated with those conditions. So people were tagging me to basically rip on New York. But the reality is that Cleveland at a different level has similar issues that just need to be addressed because infrastructure needs to be invested in.
Yeah. Yes.
We have to be strategic with addressing these issues. And so we may have fun tongue-in-cheek by bashing each other's cities, but the reality is the challenges are not unique, and they need to be addressed and done so thoughtfully.
I listened to this other podcast, and they say investing in infrastructure is investing in the middle class. So if it just makes sense. This is something we should be doing.
I mean, yeah.
There's
I mean,
there's
this
job opportunities.
completely. I was going to say, like, no, I was going to say job opportunities. The fact that like most infrastructure in this country are just crumbling. Like my family lives upstate New York, in Rochester, but in Buffalo, it's like a total Rust Belt town where and I'm sure they're doing things. They're trying. The fact that there needs to be actual money invested into these towns that are like to help with that stuff, because when you go there, it's just like you could just see it in certain places, bridges, railway, like weird random railway tracks have been left there since like the dawn of time. It feels like, but especially the sewer systems, because in certain parts of the city, way worse than if you go out to the suburbs or depending on where you are. And it just seems like it needs to be a universal thing across the board because it affects everybody.
I mean, all of us are probably not too far removed from the fact that many will drive our cars until the fact that we have an issue. It'll break down and we have it fixed. But the reality is if you can maintain it over time, you avoid the cost of having to make some significant and time-consuming repairs. As it relates to infrastructure, a lot of communities and a lot of national investment is deferred. And so they will defer the solutions that will take time and money to prevent much more significant problems over time. And so federal investment is a big part of being able to help us maintain our ability to provide a service without overburdening the customers with having to foot the entire bill. It gets very expensive very quickly.
Oh yeah.
Prior to before 1990, federal investment was huge in wastewater, sewer investments, major water infrastructure investments from the federal government. But since then, it's practically non-existent. And so more and more customers have to pay the bill for aging systems. We're certainly proud of what we're doing to help to manage those costs as best we can and to be proactive as much as possible. And a lot of that comes, it may sound strange, but our Twitter feed is just allowing people to understand the intricacies of what go into funding infrastructure, why it's a challenge, why it needs to be done, what these problems really look like, and what the benefits are by doing by finding solutions that make the most sense. So it's a great place to have that conversation. It's an investment that's worth making.
You were saying also before about that TV show in the UK showing the sewer workers. If you had the budget to do it, like who would be the first people you would interview, and what are the stories that they've told you? Is there any story that like you're like, wow, I didn't even like I don't know how long you've been working for your company, but like, is there anything that stands out that could really help educate everybody?
I've been here for more than 20 years now in various capacities in our communications department, and it's amazing who you get a chance to talk to. It's amazing the people who have either more experience or less experience than you, but they have a different experience than you. And so I talk with our sewer maintenance professionals, and they're the first ones who are out there sending me photographs. I was seeing some Twitter notifications. I've got one of the gentlemen who is out on the job today texting me photographs of one of the jobs they're doing. And the challenge that they have to face working underground, or the conditions that they're up against every single day, these people are proud of what they do. And you talk to people who are in our treatment plants. Human waste is coming into the plant on a daily basis, and their job is to make sure that the water leaving the plant is safe for the environment. It's a huge undertaking.
Completely.
It's an admirable
huge
job
responsibility
that people just don't think about.
Yeah.
This water cycle it continues to circle. And the more people can recognize that what's coming into our treatment plants is going right back into the environment, someone's got to do that work. So whether it's our sewer maintenance staff, I would love to tell more stories about them, and we'd love to share that content on our social channels. Our water treatment plant operators are tremendous assets to the organization, have experiences that are great to talk about. But then you've got people like our lab staff and our construction staff. They all have experiences that are just part of this system that make clean water possible in the region. So the more we can have those dialogues and let them tell the story, I'll just be the one who knows the Twitter password, and I'll share their stories on our accounts, because they're the ones who are the real storytellers. I just get a chance to share it with people like you.
Yeah, but that's what's so great about it too. It's like you can actually see that sort of stuff, like, which is why social media is great for that kind of thing, because it gets lost in the shuffle on like news and like bureaucracy, that the fact that you can get people like, on the ground that are actually dealing with it.
And like you're doing right now, we have a chance to talk about this topic, and people can listen to it whenever they want to, when they're driving or when they have a moment to stop and tune into your podcast. These are conversations that people are interested in, and we can't always rely on an external, maybe a localized media source to only be the ones telling our story. So we want to be able to tell these stories ourselves in a way that people will want to stop and take 10 minutes or 45 minutes or 2 minutes to engage with something that we're sharing with them.
And so do you have a story from one of your maintenance workers that stands out that you want to share with us?
One of the ones who is from a couple of years back is actually one of our sewer maintenance crews actually rescued live alligator from a creek in Cleveland, right outside of one of our pump stations. It sounds.
God.
Back up. Are alligators even indigenous there?
No.
What?
They are not. They are
So
not.
someone
And so we don't know exactly, but the chances are that it was a local owner, a local dealer who was trying to avoid having to pay fines for having a creature like that. So the fact that it was seen in the distance by one of our sewer maintenance crews while they were doing preventative maintenance on another system, they realized this could be something here. So they actually went down, rescued it.
How big was it?
It was in November. It was November time of year here in Cleveland, as you know, in New York.
So it's cold.
Yeah.
It was cold. It was almost, I think it was just about 2 feet long in terms of what the size was at the time.
So it's not a little baby. It was like a...
No.
Wow.
It was large enough to hold in your hands. And
Oh my God.
They scooped it up in a garbage can, a clean garbage can. They kept it warm with some warm water and brought it back to our lab facility until we can get someone from the local Metro Park Zoo to come by and check out and help us get
Wow.
this creature somewhere it could be safe. So
Where did it end up?
Two different places. The first one to our local zoo, and they were able to raise it until it was able to get healthy enough, and they used it for outreach. They were able to actually, it served as an outreach animal for a lot of their educational programs.
It's amazing.
But after that, once it got too large, it went to a sanctuary down in Florida where they were able to take care of it. So it's just those types of odd stories that was really before our social media heyday, so we didn't have as much fun with it as we would have liked to at the time. We kind of heard about it after the fact. But the reality was it was a great story, and we still talk about it because sewer alligators of urban legend are not too far removed from what we saw here. So it's a little bit different.
Wow, that is
That's what we're
crazy.
talking about.
A full
But,
alligator. Wow.
there's all sorts of things that we can find underground. We've had stories of people finding, one of our crews have found bowling balls in sewers before. They found a couch in the sewer before.
A couch?
I can see
light
that.
frames. It's like these are huge sewers that we have to maintain that can get filled by any number of.
Okay, I'm
other
sorry, but
places.
I'm like an idiot. All I think about is them flushing this. How does it get down there?
Yeah, most of that's not being flushed. It's coming through some other tunnel access or shaft access or one of our overflow locations where people are had gotten into it. This is years ago, prior to our current state of affairs. But in terms of things that they had reported finding down there, it's pretty crazy what comes up.
Have you like closed off those areas for the people to shove stuff down? Like
anywhere where we are aware of issues, our team is on top of it quickly to address those problems. And so again, I don't have the information of where that was found or what led to it, but we just recognize that these types of things should not happen.
Oh yeah.
And so our job is to take care of the situation. So we're on top of getting back to there quickly and making sure those repairs are made, or whatever the situation is, can be corrected quickly and safely. It's
pretty amazing, like access you can get to. And you're like, as a kid growing up, like I was like 15 or something in Rochester, there was like a the water treatment plant downtown had this area. It was like a mile away from the actual plant, but they had this little section you can kind of climb down off the highway, and it was like a skateboard spot. So we found out about it, and like there would be like 30 kids there. And then it had this crazy embankment that went up like 20 feet, and that's where you can see the actual poop river, basically all the treatment.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking we got it here so easily, and so it makes sense people just drop stuff over that, just throw just whatever willy nilly. I mean, even near the Erie Canal where my parents live, there's like a little canal section, and people set their boats on and everything. But for a while, people were dumping cars in there. So in the winter, they would lower the lock. So it gets to be about 6 feet high, and it freezes over. And then when I first moved there, I remember seeing the hood of a car just sticking up out of the ice because someone dumped it in there over the summer, and they couldn't see it until they. So it's just it's stuff like that happens. It's insane. It's like you just drop
We're managing critical infrastructure here. You have a sewer problem. People have issues, health issues, water quality issues, and so it
alligator issues.
Alligator reptiles.
Hopefully not. But we can look back in our childhood and say, you know what, we were taking some risks around some of these infrastructure-related issues and places that shouldn't be made. And so certainly our job is to keep those areas off limits for people.
Yeah.
Because
but if you have alligators,
they have an issue or our system has an issue, we have to make sure that those things don't happen.
But if you have alligators, I mean, Mutant Ninja Turtles are just right around the corner. So
Well, again, it was not something that we introduced to the system. We were glad to take care of it.
Yeah, right.
But,
You're like, we didn't put it there.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye open. So if you're
I am
on Twitter,
dying
something
to
good
know-
comes up, we'll share.
I'm dying to know the guy who found that alligator. Like this first, like, what am I seeing? Like,
There's,
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably like, this is definitely
Mind
not what I
blown.
like. This is different.
The two guys. I had video footage of the two guys walking into the lab with this garbage can full of alligator.
Oh my God.
you know, they
And it
still
was just-
tell
they
that
just-
story to
I mean,
today.
they just seemed like it was
Yeah.
just like any other day.
Yeah, it's like a Wednesday.
Just doing their job. I think it may have been a Wednesday, but they're just doing their job. And that's what I mean. People who are in this line of work, and I love to tell their stories because they've got experiences that people need to hear about.
Yes.
And the vast majority of these people, the people on our team here at the district, are proud of the work they do. And the fact that we can tell their story, it just helps them to recognize that their work is valued, and the community appreciates them more than they may know. If people are just talking about their sewer bill, they can get frustrated because they don't have all the insight about what this bill is actually paying for. You're paying for people like Josh and people like AC and people like Lydia and people like all over the organization to get the work done to help them have a safe environment.
They're the real
to treat their
superheroes.
Oh, no, it's true, though.
And it's like that's what the money goes for. It allows us to have these conversations. And so
Yeah.
these dialogues make a difference. And if we can tell those stories and make those connections for people, it's a good thing.
It's the crazy because when I was younger, my father got me a subscription to National Geographic, and this haunts me to this day. It was in India, and they were showing because the whole caste system there, so they're basically showing people what they do for work, and the cover was a man sitting on the top of like an empty manhole, and that's how he cleaned the sewers, and he had no shirt on, just shorts, no shoes. And it was insane. That's when we're thinking, like, this is possible. Like, people do this. Like, it just, that's the world we live in. And and that's the thing that people don't ever think about how our water gets cleaned or whatever, any kind of thing that they don't have to see or do. It's just like out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. And that's the problem. Which is why, again,
These are easy.
Which is why I think your Twitter feed's great, because it shows you, hey, this is not just like it doesn't just happen in a vacuum. Like, people actually do this stuff.
Yeah. And utilities are taken for granted, and to a degree, you kind of want them to be because you should just assume that they work. But it takes something to make sure they work well.
Yeah.
And so if we can talk about what that costs, what it looks like, what the result is, what the benefit is ultimately, then that's what we want to talk about.
And going back to you talking about Lake Erie, do people swim there? Because I just was also following somebody else on Twitter, and they were saying in Texas you said this as a news article, they have so much terrible runoff from the sewers that nobody can go swimming in the oceans there. And so, and even here in New York, if the sewers overspilled, our beaches are closed because we don't want people swimming in poo-poo water. And is it the same there? Like, do you have...
Well, we've got lakefront beaches here in Cleveland, and they're managed by the Cleveland Metro Parks. So we don't have the responsibility of closing the beaches. But what we do is we are the ones who collect the water samples, and to be able to give the actual water quality data, and also give predictions as to what the water quality should look like if someone's planning to go to the beach for the day. We are able to kind of run a model on the front end to say beach water quality should be good or bad today based on currents or weather patterns or the recent runoff. Because you're right, stormwater runoff and combined sewer overflow do affect recreational beach water and water quality. But the trends recently have been much more positive. We're able to, the beaches are open and water quality is much better than it's been in the past because of improvements in the system.
Amazing.
Minimize that bacteria impact, but it still happens. And so people still need to recognize if it rained late last night, you're probably going to have higher bacteria levels from runoff at the beach. Even if you were to cut every CSO and every combined sewer overflow off and close it up completely, you're still going to have runoff issues that affect water quality. Maybe not to the same degree, but it's still going to happen because of the nature of where these beaches are in these urban areas most often.
I mean, the fact that like people can even swim in Lake Erie is a miracle, because I remember it was on fire at one point in the 70s, right?
It wasn't Lake Erie, so Cuyahoga River was the one that burned.
Thank you.
In
Sorry.
1969. But the reality was that the Cuyahoga River burned 13 times prior. People don't talk about that.
That's crazy.
And so it's amazing to see the comeback of the Cuyahoga specifically, and the benefit along the Cuyahoga has certainly then been seen. in the quality of Lake Erie as well.
Yeah.
They're very much related.
I'm writing
And
that
it's,
into our horror movie, The Burning River.
Yeah, I remember learning about that. I always thought it was Lake Erie for some reason, but thank you for the
That's
correction
okay.
on that.
People do.
But
People,
like,
it's all part of the same. It's all part of the same joke that people make. Is that Lake Erie and the Cuyahoga River were basically dead at the point of at where Cleveland was set up.
right.
And for all intents and purposes, the river had no visible life, as it was told in a 1969 article about the event. And to see how far we've come, and to recognize that people can now fish and people can recreate. There's a huge paddling event that we have coming up this weekend on the Cuyahoga River. It's a destination now, and it's not the butt of jokes. It's still something that we like to embrace and talk about. But it's nothing like what it was because of the improvements we've made and the commitment at all levels, so state, federal, local, to say we can't go back to that. We've got to make sure we do what's right to protect people and the environment together. And
Yeah.
I mean, the Genesee River in Rochester wasn't much better. my parents used to work for Kodak, and then there was a whole expose. They were just literally dumping toxins. There was like they showed a video of a guy just with a truck just kicking it into the river.
Oh my
like,
God.
don't smoke. Don't drop your cigarette butts.
Exactly.
In the river. That's just not.
So
safe,
it happens.
Well, hopefully we learn from our past and to never make those mistakes ever again.
Yeah.
Like we that's why we tell the story, because people don't realize that the one fire that gets all the attention in 1969 was not the only time. To think about more than a dozen times the river burned and nothing happened. It was just an event, just part of the day's discourse.
That's
But
insane.
no, the factors that came into play in 1969, we were established just 3 years later as we see as a reaction to what took place in that fire.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see how far we've come, and it really is not that long ago.
Yeah, no.
50 years.
It's not
that long ago
No.
to see
Yeah.
how far we've come and how far is still to go.
Crazy.
Wow.
Well, we have.
I know
This is a fascinating article, by the way. Our interview. I'm just thinking about the alligator still.
I know. I'm so glad we got you. When I emailed you, I was so nervous that you would turn us down, and when you said yes, I was like, yay!
I was very excited.
I always want to go to I need to go to treatment plant. I feel like that's my Charlie and the Chocolate Factory like golden ticket moment. So if I'm ever in Ohio, I'm hitting you up.
If you're ever in Ohio, send us a message. We'll get you a plant tour. We have an annual event actually every September. In COVID, it's been more challenging, and so if you're back in town next year in the September timeframe, we would love to have you for our annual event. We've had more than 3,000 people
Oh wow,
come through a tour of our treatment plant.
that's
to
amazing.
Come see what this is, and because people are more interested than you would think.
Oh
So
yeah.
if you're back in town next September. If you are in town next September, let me know. We'll set you up.
Oh.
2022, we're going to make this podcast where we could tour and visit you.
Yeah.
On location.
I
Yes.
definitely want to see this
The
thing.
double
I'm surprised
deuce
that hasn't
year.
happened yet.
We're gonna double deuce it
Yeah.
up all over this city, this world, this everything.
Yeah. Well, in Cleveland especially.
Yeah.
But that's amazing. Should we get in some questions then?
Yeah, well, just the most. I mean, you've educated the hell out of us,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm so thankful. Our most important question that we like to ask every guest is, what kind of brand of toilet paper do you use, and do you put it on the roll over or under?
Yeah, we're not. Toilet paper is the primary thing. We're not advertising a particular brand over the other.
Ah,
But 2-ply is always, I would assume, the most
Excellent.
comfortable. Among the most comfortable, that still will break down when you flush it. As it relates to, what was the second question? Over
or under.
Personally, I've always preferred over, but I've noticed that what it does allow you to do is if you have young children in the house or pets and they're playing with the roll,
Yeah.
having it under at least prevents it from ending up all over the floor.
Yeah.
Yes.
I may have a personal preference, but in a household that we have in our family, it's probably best to have it the other way.
Just lock it in.
To make sure it doesn't get changed.
Yeah.
And
I'm
it sounds
with
like you have kids. Like, how do you educate them with all this? Like, do you bring your
They
work
just-
home?
They don't. I'm tweeting all the time, and they do see elements of our work in various capacities. They've helped to put together some of the content we've shared in years past.
Oh, it's
And so
awesome.
They're very much a part of the conversations that we have. The fact is that kids talk about poop, and so do parents, because they have kids, or because we're all humans, and these types of conversations actually intrigue us a little bit more than we would care to admit at times.
Right.
Oh,
So,
we've had a lot of
the fact
parents
that-
on the show that are like, I did not realize how much poop was going to be in my life the minute I had a baby. So, yeah.
You can't get away from it.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got those magnet letters on our fridge, on our door, and one day I came home and saw the word "poop" spelled out on the fridge. And I did get a picture of it, but I didn't. At some point, the switch has flipped, and they begin to talk about this stuff and be interested in it and laugh about it. So it's all of us could tell stories like that, but that reality is worth talking about, and that's why we use our social as we do.
Awesome. Well, I was going to do a segment called Shitty Choices, but because of the nature of your job, I think we're just going to just get into some news.
Is there anything else that you want to add to the conversation that we didn't ask you? Or I know there was a couple of our regular questions you were kind of okay with, so if there's a memory or something that you want to bring to it, we'd love to hear.
Well, like I said, the memory is the kids spelling the word "poop" is a good one to stick with me, because it just speaks to the kid at heart for all of us.
Yeah.
Yes. You must have been a proud dad.
You're like on brand, and I know how to spell.
My wife texted me when I came through, and so that picture is saved on my camera roll somewhere.
Oh,
That is great.
And so those types of stories are great. The list had some other various options for conversation, but anything else you wanted to share, I'd be happy to talk about. We're proud of the work that we do. We're proud of the opportunity to talk about it in this context and be able to have discussions that typically wouldn't happen in a public meeting. You wouldn't have these types of conversations in an email. You wouldn't have this conversation maybe at an event. But to spend 30 minutes or 40 minutes talking about topics that are impacting people's lives, this is a great forum to do that. So we appreciate the time you offered us.
Well, we appreciate you. I mean, for getting the word out. And again, I think the Twitter feed is fantastic. It really is. I mean, it's funny, but it's also educational. And you can, and it's a great marriage. You can combine those two things.
Mm-hmm.
So
at NEORSD on both Twitter and Instagram. But yeah, Twitter's it really is a great community to have these discussions, and it's amazing to hear kind of one-offs of people who are impacted or they've memorized something that we had tweeted from a long ago because it had an impact on them. So it's good to hear.
Okay. Well, I'll just say we'll end the show with a little bit of news. This is not sewer related, but I saw this and it was hilarious. And actually, it wasn't hilarious for the person that happened to, but as a story wise, first of all, I'm always amazed that there's you just type in poop news sometimes, and the amount of stuff that comes up it's staggering. And I love that it's all within a year or two. So we're going to play this little intro and then we'll get into the article. Okay, so this comes from us from our town paper, the New York Post, which is, I'm not a big fan of the Post, but they have a whole poop section in the Metro, so it's hilarious. So, New Jersey woman claims McDonald's wrapper was smeared with feces. Woo! So a woman is suing McDonald's. She accused her local chain of selling her a burger with a wrapper that was smeared in excrement.
No.
Apparently, the daughter. I think they were going to the drive-thru. The daughter went to go grab the burger. She's like, "What is this?" It's and then the smell hit them, and they're like, "Oh my god!" Now that being said, the manager at the North High Street McDonald's said that they denied this happened. It was impossible for it to happen. I guess the corporate McDonald's was pushing back on this as well, and they're saying that she's got no actual case. I wish this article would actually tell us if she saved the wrapper so they can have it tested. But as far as I know, she's taken them to court, and McDonald's also said that they were taking the appropriate steps to investigate the matter, and has been unable to substantiate any claims, I guess, to substantiate this thing. So,
I have one thing to say: poo has DNA in it. Get that stuff DNA.
Saying. Just get it tested.
Test it, the DNA, and then test the DNA of the people working at that McDonald's, and you will find.
Oh, sorry, I take it back. They told the paper, that she collected actual evidence. She says, yes, quote, we actually did save it. So I'm hoping to find out some more information about this case. But could you imagine?
I want to know nothing else about this case. You can dig all you want.
All right,
that's to me, but
I'm not a McDonald's person. I don't really go to McDonald's at all. But that just sounds like I'm just so curious. So Jesse O'Neill, New York Post. Let us know how that thing plays out.
Well, now I've got to check out the New York Post poop section. I
Yeah.
didn't realize
Yeah,
such a
just
thing existed.
I was.
Something here.
It was shocking. I'm like, oh my god. So that's where I pull a lot of these stories from. Sometimes it's really fun.
Well, it makes sense. A shitty newspaper has a shitty section.
This is true. This is true. And with that ridiculous
It's
story.
not on page 2, is it?
No. That
Or
would be
page
great.
6.
It should
Just
be.
making sure.
It should be. I'm pretty sure this is on the website only.
That probably so. All right.
But anyway, I just want to say thank you again for doing the show. You were fantastic. Please, Johnathan, tell everybody, where to find you again, just so our audience knows. One more time.
Twitter, Instagram, TikTok are all at NEORSD, Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District. Happy to engage with you there. We're also on Facebook and LinkedIn, so if you want to learn more about our career opportunities and get to know more about who we are as an organization, those are also places to go. I mean, we love conversations, whether it be with the public, with customers, and just being able to engage people wherever they are. So if you're on those platforms, that's a place to meet us, and we'll have that conversation.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And people listening to this, you will not be disappointed. It's a great feed.
Yeah.
And we love it, and you'll love it too.
A reason to be on Twitter.
Yes. And with that, thanks for laughing and learning everything but with us.
And happy pooping, everybody, and enjoy your butthole.
Hey Poopy Podcast is brought to you by Perfect 4 Entertainment. Produced by Dave and Ellen, with executive producer Stormy Leather, edited by me, Dave.
For more information, go to heypoopypodcast.com for episodes, merch, and more. Follow us on Instagram at heypoopypodcast and Twitter at heypoopy. Theme song by Jordan Perlson. Hey Poopy.